a ship built in the age when battleships ruled the oceans, when tons and firepower were the measure of a nation's strength. Her name was USS California, the second of the Tennessee class, a powerful dreadnought forged in the aftermath of the First World War. California would be tested in ways no designer could have imagined. She would be capsized, burned, sunk, raised, rebuilt, and reborn. And in those final years of the Second World War, she would reclaim her place in the line of battle and fire her guns in anger once again. USS California was laid down in October 1916 at Mare Island Navy Yard. At the time, the United States was preparing for what it believed would be the future of naval warfare. The lessons of Jutland shaped every bulkhead. Battleships needed deeper armor belts, better torpedo protection, and guns capable of hitting hard at long range. California was designed as a ship of endurance. Her turboelectric engines were revolutionary for their time. Instead of mechanical gearing, the turbines drove generators that powered electric motors linked to her propeller shafts. This system gave her impressive maneuverability and excellent fuel economy, allowing her to cruise efficiently across the vast Pacific. She displaced around 32,000 tons when fully loaded. Her main battery consisted of 12 14-inch guns in 4 triple turrets. Her armor was among the thickest of any American battleship built before the Second World War. When she was commissioned in 1921, California became the flagship of the Pacific Fleet. She was elegant, modern, and powerful, often described as the most handsome battleship in the U.S. Navy. Throughout the years before the Second World War, she played a prominent role in fleet exercises, training, and diplomatic visits. Officers competed for assignments on her, and sailors were proud to serve on a mighty ship that represented American naval prestige. No one knew it, but California's greatest test was yet to come. On the morning of December 7th, California lay moored in Pearl Harbor at berth F3. Like most of the U.S. battleships present that day, she was not fully battle-ready. She was in a reduced alert state, with several watertight doors open for routine operations, many of her gun crews ashore, and most of her anti-aircraft batteries had no men on them. At 7:55 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft swept over. Torpedo bombers turned toward Battleship Row, and California was one of the first ships they would see. She was hit by 2 Type 91 torpedoes on her port side. Both detonations tore open her hull and ruptured internal compartments. The ship began to sink, but quick thinking by her damage control party stabilized her, at least for the moment. Minutes later, more bombers arrived. California was struck by another bomb that ignited aviation fuel and set off fires deep inside the ship. Thick smoke filled the decks, and the crew fought flames and smoke for hours, but the flooding grew worse as more and more water poured through open compartments. By early afternoon, the once proud flagship was sinking slowly into the mud of Pearl Harbor. Dozens of her crew were dead, hundreds more lay wounded, and the California herself had settled into a shallow grave of mud and sand. But California would not remain at the bottom for very long. The United States Navy needed every battleship it could salvage. Work began to refloat USS California. Divers sealed holes, pumped out compartments, and built massive cofferdams around the hull. Over the spring and summer, the ship was slowly lifted from the mud. By March she was upright. By early summer she was floating again. And in October 1942, battered, burned, and stripped of paint, she steamed under her own power to Puget Sound Navy Yard. What awaited her there was more than a repair. It would be a complete transformation. California was rebuilt from the inside out. Her entire superstructure was removed and replaced with a modern design, similar to the South Dakota and Iowa-class ships. Her anti-air battery was massively upgraded to include dozens of 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikons. Radar fire control systems were installed. Her crew accommodations were modernized. By the time she emerged in January 1944, California was no longer the dreadnought from the 1920s. She had now become a modern battleship in all but speed, a ship ready to rejoin the fight in the Pacific. Her sailors began to call her the Phoenix of Pearl Harbor, a ship reborn from fire. In May 1944, USS California returned to the Pacific as part of Task Force 52. Her first major action was the invasion of the Marianas. At Saipan and Tinian, California supported the landings with relentless shore bombardment. She fired thousands of 14-inch shells, destroying coastal batteries, pillboxes, and troop positions. Her accuracy stunned observers. Her new radar-controlled guns were far more precise than anything most navies possessed. But her greatest test would come later that year. The Japanese Navy launched Operation Shogu, a desperate attempt to smash the American fleet at Leyte Gulf. One of the Japanese attack forces, commanded by Vice Admiral Nishimura, attempted to pass north through the narrow waters of Surigao Strait. Waiting for them was an American battle line unlike anything the world had seen since the First World War. Standing in that line was USS California, alongside Tennessee, Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Mississippi. It would be the last time battleships ever fought each other in line of battle. At 3:52 on October 25, California opened fire. Her radar plotted the Japanese battleship Yamashiro at a range of more than 21,000 yards. She unleashed a barrage of 14-inch shells, illuminated by star shells and guided by radar. For several minutes, every American battleship poured fire into the narrow strait. Yamashiro staggered under the blows, riddled with hits from multiple ships. Torpedoes from destroyers and PT boats struck her in succession. The Japanese column collapsed in flames. The battle was over. California and her sisters had completed what would become known as the last battleship-versus-battleship engagement in naval history. For a ship once sunk at Pearl Harbor, this was redemption of the highest order. In 1945, California joined the massive fleet assembled for the assault on Okinawa. This was the last major campaign of the Pacific War. The Japanese military had embraced suicide attacks as a primary strategy. On January 6, 1945, just off of Lingayen Gulf, California was struck by a kamikaze. The plane smashed into her starboard side, starting fires and killing over 40 crewmen. But the ship continued her mission. Damage control was swift and decisive. Her guns remained active, and within hours she resumed bombardment duty. During the Okinawa campaign, she delivered constant fire support, destroying entrenched positions, supply dumps, and artillery that threatened American troops. Her gunners often fought both land targets and incoming aircraft at the same time. By the end of the campaign, California had fired more than 7,000 rounds of heavy ammunition. She had survived Pearl Harbor. She had survived a kamikaze. She had earned her place among the most battle-hardened ships in history. With Japan's surrender in August 1945, California steamed into Tokyo Bay. Her crew witnessed the formal signing of the Japanese surrender aboard the famous USS Missouri. After the war, the Navy no longer needed large numbers of battleships. The now decades-old California was placed into reserve in 1946. For more than a decade she sat quietly, her guns silent, her decks empty, only maintenance crews would board her. Technology advanced and jets replaced propeller aircraft. Missiles replaced heavy guns. The era of the battleship faded. In 1959, after nearly 40 years of service, the Navy struck USS California from the Naval Register. In 1960, she was sold for scrap. There was no ceremonial last voyage or dramatic ending. Just the quiet dismantling of a ship that had lived and served through the most violent years of human history. Today, USS California is remembered not just as a battleship, but as a symbol of resilience. She was raised from the mud of Pearl Harbor, rebuilt into a modern fighting ship, and returned to battle with a determination few warships ever matched. She fought at Saipan, Tinian, Leyte Gulf, Surigao Strait, Lingayen, and Okinawa. She witnessed the end of the Pacific War and the birth of a new world order. Her crew paid dearly for those battles. Their courage, sacrifice, and unbroken resolve give California her true legacy. And that is the story of USS California, one of the most remarkable battleships ever to sail under the American flag. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.